Welcome back to Hydroponics Daily. Today we're going to talk about the most difficult plants to grow hydroponically. I'm not saying don't grow these, but it does say that actually. It does say crops not to grow, but certainly not to grow if you're starting out in hydroponics. So there's got 10 different types of plants here, and I've written a blog post to go into more detail about these. You'll find that on the Utremo website. The first one is aquatic plants. It might sound logical that you should grow aquatic plants hydroponically because there's loads of water running around. However, the problem is you get loads of algae growing in them. So things like water chestnuts, water lilies, you struggle to control the algae. Anything you put in to control the algae will also kill or harm the aquatic plants. So they're more difficult than it would seem. We've tried to grow aquatic plants and like freshwater seaweeds, and it's really difficult. Second one is these words you might not be familiar with: calcicoles and calcifuges. Calcifuges are acidic loving plants. They like acidic soils, and calcicoles, they love alkaline or calcium rich soils. That's difficult because the pH they require is different to what's optimized in the fertigation solution that's been optimized for other crops. And so you'll need to raise or lower the pH, and you might also have to adjust other nutrients to give them more or less of those nutrients. So as a first timer, definitely don't start growing rhododendrons, which would be an example of a calcifuge, or lilacs, or orchids that thrive in high pH for examples of calcicoles. The third type of plant to avoid would be trees, any perennial crops. So this would include cherry trees, bonsais. They get very tall, apart from bonsais, obviously. Tree crops like avocado. So you're limited in a grow room. How tall can you go? And the extra expense of growing a large plant. They grow for multiple years, as opposed to lettuce, which grows for 8 weeks at probably the most. And so you'll get a buildup of pest and disease, and that's difficult to control in a grow room. So they're difficult. Soft fruit, strawberries were notoriously difficult to grow hydroponically. There are a couple of companies now doing it commercially, but they are difficult because compared to lettuce, where you just need to focus on leafy growth, soft fruit, you have to control pollination, you have to control flower development, fruit development, harvesting the crop. So it's a lot more complicated. Soft fruits, things like raspberries, but probably the easiest of all the ones on this list actually. Fifth one, parasitic plants like Rafflesia, which has never been grown outside of its natural habitat. Never mind hydroponically, or things like mistletoe, which needs a tree to grow on, and you've got a combination of two plants there. You need to get a good infection of the host plant, and they're perennials again. So parasitic plants would be a world of pain if you tried to grow them hydroponically. If you could grow Rafflesia hydroponically, the world's largest flower, then you would be a rock star in the world of horticulture, but your chances would be very low. Sixth one, might surprise you, is cereals, things like wheat, oats, barley, rice, maize. They're going to be really difficult because they're low value, so you wouldn't actually get, you'd be doing very well if you got a profitable crop hydroponically. They require wind pollination, which you might not get inside a grow room, and they have a long life cycle for an annual plant. It's not like lettuce, which is 6 to 8 weeks. This is like 8 to 10 months. So in many examples. So cereals, not the first choice. And when people talk about hydroponics as sort of controlled environment agriculture, there's virtually no agricultural crops that are grown hydroponically. Potatoes, the seed potatoes are grown hydroponically. The actual main harvestable crop's not. And none of the cereals are grown hydroponically. So controlled environment agriculture, or CEA, should actually be called CEH, controlled environment horticulture, because you're not going to grow cereals. You'll find that there are universities and some companies playing around with cereals grown hydroponically, but no one's commercializing it because it's so difficult. And they're grasses as well, and not many hydroponic crops are grasses. That adds extra complexities as well. Carnivorous plants like Venus flytrap, sundews, pitcher plants, they're very difficult to grow hydroponically because they've evolved to like very low nutrient environments. And when you add most hydroponic feeds, they've got loads of nutrients in them. And you also need to get insects in for them to eat. So normally in hydroponics, you're excluding insects. So that adds extra complexity. Root crops like carrots would be difficult because some of the mediums like rock wool don't lend themselves to the development of a root system, a strong tuber system, and harvesting them out of the rock wool would be even more difficult. And then if you think about something like potatoes, which is not strictly a root crop, scientifically it's a stem, but we consider it a root crop in agriculture and horticulture. There, you need to avoid any light getting to the tuber, and in hydroponics there's lots of light, and the growing media often allows light to diffuse. If you allow light to get into a potato crop, then it goes green, and that's not just a cosmetic issue. Green potatoes are highly poisonous. They contain chemicals that are thought to be mutagenic to sperm and eggs in developing and developing babies and things like that. So, not to be laughed at, green potatoes. Don't eat green potatoes, people. So root crops are difficult to grow hydroponically. Arid zone plants like cacti, succulents, but many other plants that grow in arid zones, they will be difficult to grow hydroponically because of the abundance of water in hydroponics. And these plants are not evolved to have lots of water around their root system, so they need a lot more air and probably higher sodium levels, which brings us on to halophytes, which are plants that grow near the seaside or in seawater or brackish water in estuaries. They will be difficult because you need to add sodium. Sodium is not in these fertilizers. Sodium is not in there for a very good reason. Sodium is normally highly toxic to plants. However, halophytes have evolved to thrive or even require sodium. So you need to add that in, and table salt will work, but that will also block up filters as it evaporates, as the water evaporates, the salty water, and then your system becomes unsuitable for the growth of any other plants that you may want to put in there at the same time or afterwards. You need to thoroughly clean out all that salt. So not impossible to grow these 10 types of plants hydroponically, but certainly not for the beginner and not for the faint-hearted. Probably a lot of potential if you can grow them. So maybe target one of these and test your hydroponic skills. So that's your Hydroponic Daily for today.